So today is Monday, June 8th, 2026.
Right around the corner.
Literally just 3 days away. In exactly 72 hours, the whistle is going to blow on what essentially amounts to a massive, chaotic, and just completely unprecedented mathematical experiment.
Oh, absolutely. It's an experiment on a global scale.
Exactly. I mean, the 2026 FIFA World Cup is kicking off across the United States, Canada, and Mexico.
Yeah.
And when you look at the raw numbers from all the sources we've gathered for this deep dive, we're talking historical archives, qualification data, the brand new tournament rule books. It's just wild.
It is. The sheer scale of what is about to happen is honestly almost difficult to wrap your head around.
Right, because we are looking at a completely expanded 48-team field.
Yep, up from the usual 32.
104 matches spread across 39 days. I mean, it's the largest sporting event in the history of human civilization.
And that structural shift alone, it completely rewrites the tactical playbook for every single nation involved.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, expanding up to 48 teams introduces these crazy layers of fatigue, travel complexity, and just mathematical probability that managers have never had to account for in previous generations.
Never. And usually, when a tournament of this magnitude rolls around, the cameras in the betting markets, they instantly lock on to the traditional heavyweights,
For
right?
usual suspects, yeah.
For the teams with the terrifyingly deep benches, Brazil, France, Argentina, Spain.
Right, the giants.
But combing through this massive stack of data for our deep dive today, the most compelling story actually isn't about those perennial favorites who are just expected to dominate.
No, we are completely bypassing the obvious ones today.
We are. Because the real narrative that captures the essence of this supersized, grueling tournament is the return of Austria.
Yeah, Austria.
They are stepping back onto the global stage after a paralyzing 28-year absence. And their journey is this, it's just a fascinating intersection of historical trauma, cutting-edge tactical theory, and sheer endurance.
They really serve as the perfect lens through which to view this whole new tournament landscape.
Yeah.
Because here you have a sleeping giant forced to navigate a format that didn't even exist the last time they qualified.
Which is way back in 1998.
Exactly. So to really understand what they are up against, we have to look at the mechanics of the expansion itself.
Right, because before we even get into Austria's specific challenges, you, the listener, really need to grasp this unprecedented landscape they're walking into.
Yeah, the rules have fundamentally changed.
They have. The format is entirely alien compared to what fans are used to. We've gone from 8 groups of 4 to 12 groups of 4.
12 groups. That's a lot of football.
It is. And the advancement rules are what really jump out at me here.
Yeah.
In the old system, it was pretty ruthless.
Very black and white. Top 2 advance, bottom 2 go home.
Right. But now we have a newly minted round of 32.
Which is huge.
Yeah, the top 2 teams from each group still advance, obviously, but they are joined by the 8 best third-place teams across the entire tournament.
And that specific rule change regarding third-place teams fundamentally alters the incentive structure of the entire group stage.
Really? How so?
Because it essentially destroys the mutually beneficial draw.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, in the 32-team era, if you reached the third match day of the group stage and 2 teams knew a single point would guarantee both of them a spot in the knockouts.
Oh, you'd often watch 90 minutes of the most conservative, risk-averse football imaginable.
Exactly. Neither team had a reason to attack. It inadvertently rewarded collusion or at least extreme passivity.
Right. Why risk a counterattack if a 0-0 tie gets you both through?
Exactly. But by allowing 8 third-place teams to advance, you remove that safety net entirely.
Because now your standing is suddenly being measured against nations in entirely different groups.
Yes. Goal differential becomes the ultimate currency.
Wow, okay.
So a smaller nation that gets completely dismantled in their first 2 matches might still scrape into the round of 32 if they win their final group match by, say, 3 or 4 goals.
So basically, instead of a diluted tournament where teams can coast, the math creates a scenario where a team is constantly fighting for one more goal.
Right up until the final whistle of the group stage.
Because that single goal could be the tiebreaker against a team playing 2 time zones away.
Exactly. Every single minute is exponentially more pressurized. The nervous energy will be constant.
Now, I do want to bring up an analogy here because it makes me wonder about the prestige of it all.
Okay, let's hear it.
Is this massive expansion kind of like an elite university suddenly doubling its admission rate? Like, does the degree mean less now, or does it just finally give late bloomers the opportunity they actually deserve to shine.
That's a great way to frame it. And from a tactical standpoint, I'd lean toward the latter.
Really?
Yeah, it gives teams that normally get squeezed out a chance to prove themselves in high-stakes matches.
That makes sense. Now, speaking of the setup, the source material notes that this newly structured draw came with a pretty heavily scrutinized geopolitical backdrop.
Yes, back in December 2025.
Right, at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And the sources detailed that the ceremony actually opened with FIFA presenting a newly created Peace Prize to Donald Trump.
Which, as the source text points out, immediately drew massive international reaction and pushback from human rights groups.
Exactly. And just to be completely clear with you, the listener, we are impartially passing along this information directly from the source material regarding the event and the resulting scrutiny.
Yeah, we aren't endorsing or condemning any political viewpoint here. We're just reporting the facts of the draw.
Right, exactly. So setting the politics aside, we want to look purely at how that draw impacts the actual mechanics on the pitch.
Yeah.
Because the tactical reality Austria faces in this expanded bracket is brutal.
There really is.
And they aren't just battling the 47 other teams, you know. They're battling their own mythology.
The ghosts of the past. It's a tangible weight on Austrian football.
It really seems like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible to evaluate their modern tactical evolution without first understanding the wonder team of the 1930s.
The Miracle Team, under Coach Hugo Meisel.
Yes.
From the archives, I mean, and looking at the data, it seems like they weren't just winning games. They were inventing the modern aesthetic of the sport.
They absolutely were. We're talking about a fluid, intricate, short-passing game that was decades ahead of its time.
It reads like the absolute blueprint for what the Dutch would eventually brand as total football in the 1970s.
Oh, 100%. They take fourth place at the 1934 World Cup in Italy.
And then they win Olympic silver in Berlin in 1936.
Right. They were the undisputed cultural icons of Central Europe. They dictated the tactical rhythm of an entire continent.
But then, that golden era violently collided with the political realities of 1938.
Yeah, a really dark chapter.
Austria had actually successfully qualified for the World Cup in France that year. But in March, the Anschluss happened to the annexation of Austria into Nazi Germany.
And that forced the complete abolition of the Austrian Football Association.
The tournament bracket literally just had an empty slot where Austria was supposed to be.
It's wild to think about.
Yet, Sweden just advanced by default because Austria wasn't there.
Because the Nazi regime dissolved the Austrian identity on the pitch. They mandated that the Austrian players be integrated into a unified German national team for the tournament.
But the sources highlight one specific player who simply refused to comply, right?
Yes, Matthias Sindelar.
The absolute star of the Wunder team.
They called him the paper man.
Because of his slight build, right? Reading these historical accounts, his style of play relied entirely on slipping through heavy physical defenses using pure intellect and agility.
Exactly. And when that unified German team was formed, he point-blank refused the call-up.
Wow.
He cited his age and a recurring knee injury.
Right, but within the cultural context of Vienna at the time.
It was widely recognized as a profound, silent act of political defiance. He refused to let his talent be weaponized by the regime.
It's an incredibly chilling, tragic chapter.
It really is.
And then, after the war, they slowly rebuild and actually hit a post-war peak in 1954, taking third place in Switzerland.
Right.
But from there, it's just this agonizing, multi-decade descent. They become increasingly irrelevant on the global stage, culminating in a 28-year World Cup drought following their 1998 group stage exit.
Yeah, and imagine being a young Austrian player stepping onto the pitch today.
I can't even imagine. It's like carrying a 90-year-old ghost on your back.
You are constantly being measured against a mythological standard of fluid perfection from an era before television even existed.
It makes me wonder about the psychological burden of that ancient history. Like, an analogy would be, it's like being in a band that released a masterpiece album in the 1950s, completely fell off the radar, and is now trying to mount a comeback tour in 2026.
That is a perfect analogy.
Like, how do modern players deal with the ghosts of 90 years ago?
Well, for a long time, they didn't deal with it well. Nostalgia became an active detriment to their development.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For the better part of 3 decades, the Austrian footballing culture was paralyzed by the expectation to replicate the aesthetics of the Wonder Team, or that 1954 squad.
So they were stuck in the past.
Completely. During the 2000s and 2010s, while neighboring nations like Germany, Switzerland, and Belgium were completely overhauling their youth academies.
Embracing modern, data-driven tactical philosophies.
Exactly. But Austria was caught looking backward. They relied on outdated methods because they were culturally trapped by their own history.
Wow.
So that 28-year drought wasn't just bad luck, it was the statistical consequence of a systemic failure to modernize.
Which is brutal.
Yeah.
Because you can't exercise a 28-year curse with nostalgia.
No, you definitely cannot.
You have to bring in an architect who is willing to tear the old house down to the studs and pour a completely new, modern foundation.
And that points us directly to the hiring of Ralf Rangnick.
Right. As head coach in 2022.
His arrival was the definitive pivot point for this program. He is globally recognized as one of the conceptual godfathers of gegenpressing.
Okay, so for anyone listening who hasn't spent hours analyzing tactical chalkboards, what is that? Like, what makes this team different from the squads that failed for 3 decades?
Well, gegenpressing is essentially a high-intensity philosophy built entirely around organized aggression.
Organized aggression.
Yeah, okay. Instead of dropping back into a defensive shell when you lose possession, the entire team triggers an immediate collective sprint to swarm the ball carrier.
Oh, wow.
The goal is to win the ball back within seconds, usually high up the pitch, before the opposing defense has time to organize.
That sounds exhausting.
It requires incredible physical endurance and absolute synchronized discipline. It replaces passive fear with proactive control.
So Rangnick instilled an aggressive, pragmatic, mathematically sound philosophy into a squad that had historically been timid in big moments.
Exactly. He replaced fear with high-pressing pragmatism.
And the data from UEFA Euro 2024 proves the system works. I mean, Austria didn't just scrape by, they actively disrupted the tournament hierarchy.
They absolutely did. They famously topped a group containing France and the Netherlands.
Which is insane. Outpressing and outworking 2 of the most technically gifted squads in Europe isn't a fluke. That's a massive statement of intent.
And beating those top-tier nations validated the intense physical demands of the Rangnick project to the players. It created deep internal belief.
Right.
But, navigating a condensed World Cup qualification campaign is an entirely different kind of psychological endurance test.
Yeah, the UEFA Group H qualification data is fascinating to look at, especially when you factor in the calendar congestion.
Oh, the scheduling was a nightmare for them.
Because of their deep run in the UEFA Nations League, which is a secondary European competition that eats up international fixture dates, Austria had to start their World Cup qualifying campaign late.
Right, in June of 2025.
And they were jammed into a group with Bosnia and Herzegovina, Romania, Cyprus, and San Marino.
So the condensed schedule left zero margin for error.
None at all.
But you can see the ruthless efficiency of Rangnick's system in how they handled the lower-tier teams. They didn't just secure the necessary points, they dismantled them.
Oh yeah, let's look at the October 9, 2025 match against San Marino.
A total demolition.
A 10-0 victory. Marko Arnautović, their veteran striker, scores 4 goals in that single match. It's an absolute bloodbath.
Yeah, annihilating San Marino builds goal differential, sure. But the true metric of Austria's evolution was always going to be how they handled the pressure cooker matches against their direct rivals.
Right. For the top spot, Romania and Bosnia.
Because only the group winner secures automatic qualification to North America.
Second place condemns you to a terrifying sudden death playoff bracket against other European runners-up.
It's a lottery nobody wants to play.
Definitely not. Which brings us to the decisive moment of qualification. November 18th, 2025. The Ernst-Happel Stadium in Vienna.
What a match.
48,000 fans. A winner-takes-all match against Bosnia and Herzegovina. Austria simply needs a win or a draw to lock up first place.
While Bosnia needs an outright win.
Exactly. And just 12 minutes in, Haris Tabaković scores for Bosnia.
In that exact moment, the atmosphere in the stadium just shifts.
You can imagine the tension.
Oh, the ghosts of the 2000s and 2010s immediately creep back in. Historically, conceding an early goal in a must-win home game would have triggered a total psychological collapse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the old Austrian squads would have abandoned the game plan, started playing panicked long balls, and just ultimately unraveled.
But the qualification data shows they didn't flinch.
They didn't.
They maintained the pressing triggers, they kept their defensive line high, they didn't let the anxiety of 48,000 traumatized fans dictate their geometry on the pitch.
And that is the ultimate triumph of Rangnick's tenure. He systematically removed that historical fear. The team trusted the gegenpressing mechanics.
Wow.
They slowly suffocated Bosnia's midfield, creating turnover after turnover, relentlessly applying pressure until the defensive structure finally cracked.
And the dam breaks in the 77th minute. Michael Gregoric scores the crucial equalizer.
What a moment.
Yeah. They hold on for the 1-1 draw, finishing first in Group H with 19 points, edging out Bosnia's 17. The 28-year curse is officially dead.
And Gregoric's 77th minute goal wasn't a fluke. It was the result of a resilient system that didn't panic when trailing in a winner-takes-all scenario.
Right. So the ticket is punched. They are heading to North America.
They made it.
But it raises the question, who exactly is getting on the plane to navigate this 48-team gauntlet, and how are they preparing right now?
Well, the finalized squad list reveals a really compelling blend of elite European pedigree and hardened systemic role players.
Yeah, looking at the squad highlights,
Right.
the spine of the team is undeniably strong. At the back, you have Captain David Alaba.
He provides the tactical anchor.
Right.
You need his intelligence to maintain that high defensive line without getting exposed to counterattacks.
Makes sense. And then moving into the midfield, Marcel Sabitzer operates as the primary engine.
His ability to cover ground and dictate the tempo is just essential for the pressing system to actually function.
Right. And then we look up top and we see Marko Arnautović,
An absolute legend.
Austria's most capped player with 133 appearances. The all-time top scorer with 47 goals, including 8 just in this qualification cycle alone.
He brings this immense, unapologetic, physical swagger to the pitch.
Okay. There's a catch, right? He is 37 years old going into this tournament.
Yeah, he is.
And you just said the physical load of a gegenpressing system requires constant anaerobic sprinting. How does a 37-year-old striker actually survive, let alone thrive, in a system that demands you run until your lungs burn?
Well, it requires a profound shift from raw athleticism to positional intelligence.
Okay, what does that look like?
A 37-year-old Arnautović isn't mindlessly chasing down every loose ball. He operates as a highly calibrated trigger.
Got it.
He reads the spatial geometry of the opposing defense and initiates the press only when the probability of a turnover is highest.
Oh, so he's essentially signaling the younger midfielders behind him to collapse on the trap.
Precisely. And he uses his massive physical frame to shield the ball and absorb contact, which allows the team to transition from defense to attack.
So it's working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
But even with a smart system, the geographical demands of this 2026 tournament are a nightmare.
The travel is brutal.
A team could find themselves playing in the humidity of Miami one week and the altitude of Mexico City the next.
Yeah, the logistics are a huge factor.
So to counter this, the sources indicate Austria made a highly deliberate geographical strategy. They've established their permanent base camp on the west coast of the United States.
Yes.
They are locked down at the Bacara Resort in Goleta, California, and they're using the training facilities at UC Santa Barbara.
Which is brilliant. Creating a stable microenvironment is paramount when the external tournament structure is this chaotic.
Right, but that stability just took a massive hit.
The injury.
Yes. Breaking news from the source material dated June 2nd, just 6 days ago. Crucial midfielder Christoph Baumgartner was forced to withdraw from the tournament entirely due to a late injury.
That is a devastating blow.
It's like a lead actor forgetting their lines during the final dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't losing a core player right before kickoff just shatter a team's confidence?
The timing is undoubtedly brutal. Baumgartner's ability to operate in the half spaces and execute the transitional press is a core component of their tactical identity.
Right.
But this is exactly why establishing the base camp in an isolated, serene environment like California pays massive dividends.
Oh, interesting. Because they're thousands of miles away from the intense scrutiny of the European sports tabloids.
Exactly. They are entirely insulated. If this injury happened while they were training in Austria, the media panic would be inescapable.
It would be on every front page.
It would dominate every press conference and infect the locker room. By isolating in California, they control the narrative internally.
Oh, I see.
Rangnick is a meticulous systematizer. He'll use this isolation to acclimatize to the time zones and purely focus on tactical adjustments to cover Baumgartner's absence.
The focus isn't on mourning the loss. It's entirely on recalibrating the midfield geometry so that the drop-off in efficiency is practically invisible.
Control the environment to control the psychology.
Wow. But losing Baumgartner forces Rangnick to rethink things, just as we look at the literal map of their tournament. Let's unpack the gauntlet of Group J and who stands between Austria and the round of 32.
The draw was very interesting. Group J placed Austria alongside Jordan, the defending world champions Argentina, and Algeria.
And the travel schedule alone is a significant opponent here.
It really is.
Let's look at match 1.
Yeah.
June 16th against World Cup debutants, Jordan. This match is at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California.
Now, geographically, this is a highly favorable start.
Right, because they're based in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, it's a short interstate flight. They remain in the same time zone, which minimizes travel fatigue.
But then the reality of the 2026 expansion really sets in. Match 2 is June 22, and they have to fly halfway across the continent to Arlington, Texas, to face Lionel Scaloni's Argentina inside the massive AT&T Stadium.
A huge jump.
And then match 3 is on June 27, flying north to Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri to play Algeria.
The physical toll is staggering.
Flying from the Pacific coast to the intense heat of Texas and then to the Midwest, all while trying to execute a high-pressing tactical system.
The accumulation of lactic acid, the disruption of circadian rhythms from time zone hopping.
Right.
These factors actively degrade a team's ability to press effectively as the group stage progresses.
Which brings me back to that terrifying prospect of match 2 against Argentina, the defending champions.
Monumental challenge.
An analogy here. It's like playing a video game where level 2 is suddenly the final boss.
Pretty much.
From a strategic standpoint, applying a relentless gegenpress against a team that can casually pass out of suffocating pressure seems suicidal.
Oh, it would be.
So factoring in the travel fatigue and the expanded format math we discussed earlier, do you even try to win against Argentina, or do you just try to survive?
The expanded 48-team math heavily dictates the latter. You just survive.
Really?
Yeah, because under the old 32-team format, a loss to Argentina might permanently cripple your chances of advancing.
Right.
But because 8 third-place teams now survive the group stage, Austria doesn't have to beat Argentina. Their tactical blueprint operates in 3 distinct phases.
Okay, break that down for me. Phase 1 being Jordan and Santa Clara.
Precisely. Jordan is a debutante. They will likely play a low defensive block looking to survive.
Makes sense.
Austria possesses overwhelming advantages in European tactical experience and systemic cohesion. Securing 3 points against Jordan is an absolute non-negotiable requirement.
Put 3 points on the board and alleviate the pressure immediately.
Exactly. Then phase 2 is Argentina and Texas.
The final boss.
Right. And here you abandon the high press.
Yeah.
You do not get drawn into an expansive open shootout with the world champions because they will dismantle you.
So what do?
You drop into a compact, low defensive block. You frustrate them, force them wide, and aggressively manage your goal differential.
So damage limitation.
Yes. If you scrape a 0-0 draw, it's a tactical masterclass. If you lose 1-0 or 2-0, it is a mathematically acceptable outcome that does not destroy your tournament.
Wow. Okay. Because it all hinges on phase 3 in Kansas City.
Against Algeria. If Austria handles their business against Jordan and protects their goal differential against Argentina, they enter match 3 knowing exactly what they need.
Setting up a tactical showdown.
Right. A draw, or certainly a win, against Algeria secures a spot in the round of 32. The expanded format forgives the loss to a superpower, provided you handle business against the others.
It rewards calculated pragmatism over reckless heroism.
Exactly.
It's fascinating. It's less about being a giant killer in the group stage and entirely about being a ruthless, highly efficient accountant across 270 minutes of football.
That's a great way to put it.
Which leads to the ultimate question hovering over this entire deep dive. If the math allows for an easier path out of the group, where is the ultimate ceiling for this modern Austrian side? Like, what does the data actually say about their chances? Let's consult the raw data from the global betting markets.
Well, the markets are entirely devoid of sentimentality.
Always.
Currently, bookmakers have Austria listed at odds ranging from 1,001 to 2,001 to win the 2026 World Cup.
Wow. Okay. So translating that into probability, the statistical models give them roughly a 0.5% to 1% chance of actually lifting the trophy in July.
Yeah, in the betting community, they are universally categorized as a dangerous outsider.
Dangerous outsider like that.
The betting markets highly respect the structural integrity of Rangnick's system and their dominant Euro 2024 performance, obviously.
Right.
But they clearly acknowledge that Austria lacks the devastating world-class depth of a France or a Brazil. They are a tier below the favorites.
So turning to you, the listener, what defines success for a dangerous outsider? If you have spent 28 years wandering in the wilderness, is simply making it out of the group and participating in the round of 32 enough to consider this a successful return?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Or does true validation require knocking out a heavyweight in the elimination rounds? How do we synthesize this whole journey?
When you synthesize the entire historical arc, the trauma of 1938, the decades of systemic paralysis, the intense psychological rewiring under Rangnick, the definition of success becomes very clear.
What is it?
It's about permanent evolution. A successful tournament means proving that Austrian football has permanently evolved.
Right.
Winning a World Cup requires a miraculous, unsustainable alignment of luck, health, and peaking form.
Very true.
But reaching the round of 16 or the quarterfinals, that would validate the Rangnick project.
It proves to the domestic fan base that the era of looking backward is permanently closed.
Exactly. It creates a new baseline of expectation. A deep run inspires an entirely new generation of Austrian youth players who will grow up watching a tactically elite, fearless squad.
They won't have to carry the paralyzing burden of the 1930s wonder team because they will finally have a modern legacy to build upon.
They finally put the ghost of the 1930s to rest.
That is an incredibly powerful narrative arc to track over the next month. Stepping back and looking at the epic scope of what you, the listener, just learned from these sources today, it's staggering.
It really is a lot to take in.
We've dissected the complex, chaotic mechanics of this new 104 match format and how it alters the safety net of the group stage. We traced Austria's traumatic historical baggage, from the tragedy of the 1930s to the systemic failures that triggered a 28-year absence.
We examined the gritty qualification under Rangnick, transforming a paralyzed culture into a fearless machine.
We analyzed the finalized squad, the reliance on a 37-year-old Arnautović, and the strategic isolation in California designed to mitigate that devastating late injury to Baumgartner.
And we mapped out the brutal geography and tactical setup of Group J against Jordan, Argentina, and Algeria.
All framed by the stark reality of those 1001 betting odds. It is a monumental test of endurance, intellect, and psychological resilience.
It's going to be fascinating to watch unfold.
Which leaves us with one final provocative concept for you to mull over as the clock ticks down to kickoff.
Let's hear it.
The sheer volume of this 48-team mega tournament guarantees a level of physical and mental exhaustion that we have literally never witnessed in a World Cup.
Sure.
It is going to be a grueling marathon. The traditional assumption is that this supersized format will ultimately favor the traditional deep-benched superpowers, the nations who can rely on incredible depth to manage fatigue.
That's the conventional wisdom, yeah.
But is it possible that this chaotic, grueling marathon is actually the exact perfect environment for a disciplined, hardened outsider like Austria to quietly orchestrate the greatest upset in modern football history?
It's the ultimate variable. When the sheer physical exhaustion sets in during the knockout rounds, a system built on collective discipline might just outlast a squad built purely on individual flair.
The ultimate stress test begins in 3 days. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the archives, the data, and the tactical blueprints.
Keep a close eye on the pitch.
Absolutely. Specifically, watch out for Austria when Group J kicks off on June 16th. We will see if the meticulous engineering holds up or if the beautiful chaos of the expanded World Cup takes over.